But I think it can well be argued that a sort of an animating principle of fairness could be carried through in a way that does not necessarily treat everybody entirely equally, in the sense that it doesn't disestablish in order to co-establish, but co-establish in a different way, whereas I'd actually argue that you should combine disestablishment with co-establishment. I think it changes the public politics a lot if you in a sense have this ad hoc co-establishment. But there's a problem about this, and this is the main point I think I want to make in this discussion. What we are doing at the moment is having a sort of ad hoc, pluralised establishment by stealth, extending the current role of the current established church that we've forgotten about and may be useful in another way, and bringing in all sorts of other ways, different faith groups, because it might be useful to do different public policy, or for whatever reasons it's been done in different ways. And that's going on. And that's going on in the context of these faith wars between the religious and the secularists in different ways that pop up around particular controversies. I don't actually know how seriously to take it, because some of it could just be a sort of way of passing time on the Today programme. And this discussion is going to be a lot less interesting on the Today programme than one with sort of Richard Dawkins and the maddest person you can find on the other side. But it clearly is having damaging effects, and we need to do something about it. And so if we don't have a political negotiation and a ratification of the type of settlement that we want within a democratic society, I think firstly every single move within it will create the potential to kick off these storms, and you will never depolarise the debate. So I think the challenge I want to put on the table, I don't want to pretend I've got the answer to it, is if this is the correct understanding of how you can have an accommodation of secular and religious perspectives, how could you seek to reframe public politics, media discourse and public discussion around that, as opposed to high-level engaged, publicly engaged academic discussion? What is the way to reframe the public politics? Now, something that's too high for you to do it, but I think is a step we could take in the academic debate. I think you can situate this discussion in a British democratic republican tradition, as opposed to a sort of a French republican tradition, which is the British democratic republican tradition that says, what is politics? The late Bernard Crick, and in Defence of Politics, seems to be a very good example of this. And one of the things about politics today is nobody really understands what politics is. Politics is, do I get what I want when I ask for things from politics? But what politics is the difficult job of the collective negotiation of a shared society. And it seems to me if we had that understanding, it would be perfectly legitimate to go into a discussion about this, an open-ended discussion where we seek to ratify. I've always thought there are opportunities in the UK particularly, because the British state is a plural, civic, multinational entity, so it's inherently plastic, it's inherently up to negotiation, and we've never actually codified it, although we've changed our understanding of what it means many times, such as the welfare settlement. There's always been a possibility to say it is now time to have that discussion. And so I think it still is. So one suggestion would be that. The other would be just to simply note there are no spaces that I can see to have not multi-faith discussion, which is difficult, but the easy bit actually of this, because there are shared premises. Where are the spaces other than at 8:10 on the Today programme for somebody to shout at Richard Dawkins for the multi-faith, secular, no-faith, humanist discussion to take place in a serious way that might reflect back on the public discourse? I think at the moment that seems to me to be missing outside of academic spaces. So I think we need to do that. In terms of what comes out of it, I think we're going to ratify it. You will need to change some things in an organic way. It seems to be the easy part of this is to use the dignified rather than the efficient part of the Constitution. It seems to be the use of the monarchy is the most natural thing of all, because actually I think symbolic recognition is most of it. The really hard part will be education comes up, because it's a real set of decisions about something very important, how we educate our children. The really hard part will be how to continue that discussion, a sort of political negotiation, over the most sharply contested issues between religious and non-religious worldviews. They seem to me about free speech causing deep offence, tensions between group and individual rights, choices which parents make on behalf of their children. They come down to issues of right of exit. And I think we need an account for that. I think one thing that I think a moderate secularism can legitimately look for, without preempting the discussion, is some guarantees that by going into the discussion, it's not throwing everything into the melting pot so that something quite alien to it will come out. It seems to me it's clear that wouldn't happen because of the way in which all faiths will have to come to human rights principles to kick off the discussion. Finally, I just want to say something about the 5 cases at the end, and particularly the 5th one. It seems to me the claim to truth is particularly unhelpful in the public discourse, because I think the liberal state has to be neutral about that, because it's trying to provide autonomy to us to pursue our own conceptions of the good life, including those of us who think it's religious. So I think, on the whole, I think that is, if articulated, that keeps us in the faith wars framework. I think the other ones are all very, I mean, it may be theoretically true, I'm not denying that. Many secularists will be quite tempted by the dangerousness thing, and the moderate sort of moderate religion as inoculation, I think, is something that we have a tradition of. But I thought this issue of respect was particularly interesting, and I'd like to think more about it. But what comes out of the examples you give is the sense that the liberal state is much more culturally committed and situated than it thinks it is. It isn't neutral between opera and other forms of culture. It privileges certain forms of arts, culture and sport while leaving the space for us to make our own decisions about that. Now you can have a discussion about whether non-sporting life is being crowded out by the sheer level of sport, but this wouldn't be different. It seems to be perfectly appropriate to privilege a sort of public understanding of our own history and our own society. One can easily see why conservatives should find something useful in that, but actually left traditions should find something very useful in that, because in a sense, I think, apart from there being a Christian socialist tradition, much of the remaining left ethical socialist traditions are essentially derived from religious perspectives, without the theology. So I think that sense of respect for religion and the use of the sort of symbolic aspects of public life to reflect it would be a very appropriate way to call off, in a sense, the faith wars in a way that most people would find reasonable. I think the biggest public challenge is how to prevent the polarisation which feeds off itself dominating the debate, how to, in a sense, get the excluded, crowded out middle back onto the table. And it seems to me it will take a coalition of non-faith and faith voices to put together a strategy to make some quite assertive claims on the debate, given that we start from where we've now got to. Thanks very much.